Grigsby, and before you start, I should remind folks that copies of these pieces of legislation are available out in the hallway. And if you need any information following the hearing, feel free to directly contact my office in Madison. Good morning, Representative Grigsby. Thank you for your patience.
Good morning, and thank you so much for being here. Welcome to Milwaukee, and welcome to the 18th Assembly District, which I'm very proud to represent. I'd like to start off by thanking you, Chairman Lehman, and the members of the Senate Education Committee, and my Milwaukee colleagues for being here today. I'd especially like to thank you for your true leadership in the decision to hold a public hearing on these proposals here in Milwaukee, where the impact of this bill will be felt the most. Senate Bill 405 is one of the most important bills proposed for Milwaukee in years, which is why this opportunity for community input is so vital. While many parents are unable to be here today to speak on this important issue, I am encouraged that so many residents of Milwaukee are here with us today now. First, it's very important that we recognize the issue at hand. Senate Bill 405 is about a mayoral takeover of our public education system. A hostile mayoral takeover of our public education system. In addition, it is very clear that Milwaukee Public Schools is in need of reform. No one denies that. No one says that because they don't support mayoral takeover, they support the status quo. That myth needs to be put to rest. No one denies that we need real reform, but that reform must be real and it must be effective if the necessary improvements are to be made. With that, it is important to recognize three important points. One, mayoral takeovers are not only ineffective, but have made public education worse for some students in other cities where this is taking place. Two, without defending the status quo, and while recognizing the need to implement reforms at MPS, we should also recognize the ongoing improvements that are currently being made. Three, there is a real alternative to education reform at MPS. No one defends the status quo. I'll say that several times before I sit down. But because we don't defend the status quo, Senator Cox and myself have proposed a common sense alternative to reforming Milwaukee school systems. Some advocates for mayoral takeover say that takeover is the only way to reform education. Both myself and Senator Cox have maintained for some time that this is simply not the case. Let's just take a look in one city, a tale of one city. Let's look at Chicago, where mayoral control happened, and where our current Secretary of U.S. Education, the U.S. Secretary of Education, comes from. In Chicago, mayoral control is quickly becoming known as the new tyranny by education policy experts and activists alike. Former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Education Diane Radich, once a supporter of mayoral takeovers, now believes that this sort of authoritarian, my goodness, authoritarian, look, I'm here, doing my best, control fails to justify itself. As a noted education historian and scholar, Radich now understands, and I quote, if a superintendent is appointed by a mayor, his first obligation is to the mayor, not to the children. Radich's testimony against renewing mayoral control is perhaps the most compelling. She says that it needs change because it lacks accountability. It lacks transparency. It shuts the public out of public education. It has no checks or balances. It lacks the most fundamental element of a democratic system of government, which is public oversight. Again, this is her critique of mayoral takeovers, 7 years after she originally supported a takeover in New York. But let's not only just take the words of education experts. Let's look at how public education has fared under mayoral control after 15 years in Chicago. Chicago is most often cited as an education success story. Again, it's where U.S. Secretary Arne Duncan led the public schools before his appointment with the Obama administration. It is also a city that has not benefited from mayoral takeover. The Commercial Club of Chicago, which is similar to our local Chamber of Commerce, is a group that originally supported the takeover of Chicago public schools. They have since become very critical of Chicago's mayoral takeover. According to the Commercial Club's most recent report, titled Still Left Behind, the 2008 test data shows that most students in the Chicago public school system continue to fail. Even after almost 15 years of mayoral control, most of Chicago's students drop out or fail. The vast majority of Chicago's elementary and high schools do not prepare their students for success in college and beyond. And I'm quoting directly from the report at this point. And again, this is a group that originally advocated for Chicago's mayoral takeover in the first place. Most troubling, the reported gains in test scores in Chicago appear to be false and result from the manipulation of data. Recent dramatic gains in the reported number of CPS elementary students who meet standards on state assessments appear to be due to changes in the test rather than real improvements in student learning. In 2006, Illinois changed state standards testing procedures and made changes to the skills test itself, resulting in a falsified boost in testing scores. According to the Commercial Club, school achievement in CPS, Chicago Public Schools, appears to be due mostly to changes in test and testing procedures rather than improvements in student learning. The director of this organization said that many states have lowered scores on standardized tests to create the public appearance they are meeting federal standards. This practice sells students short. Attached to my written testimony, you will find details, charts, and data that help to support the evidence of these manipulated data. While achievement misleadingly appears to have jumped, the standardized NAEP scores tell a very different story about student performance under mayoral takeover. The performance of Chicago's high schools is abysmal, with about half the students dropping out of the non-selective enrollment schools and more than 70% of 11th grade students failing to meet standards in math, reading, and science. In many of Chicago's high schools, not one student in the 11th grade is on track to succeed in a college-level math or science course. This is after 15 years of mayoral takeover of Chicago public schools. The only Chicago students prepared for college are concentrated in Chicago's selective enrollment schools, not the conventional public schools that are the overwhelming majority of the city's youth. In 2008, only 8% of Chicago's high schools exceeded the state standards benchmark established in the federal law by No Child Left Behind. We have to want something better than this when it comes to our children in Milwaukee. Let's talk about present day. We all know that we have some issues, and we know that we have some problems. And I'll say it again for the record. I do not support the status quo, and I don't think anyone in this room does. Let's talk about what some of those problems are. Unfortunately, Milwaukee is internationally recognized as the most segregated city in the United States. In addition to segregation, Milwaukee sees astounding disparities in every aspect of life. We're ranked the 5th worst in black male joblessness, 47.1% black male unemployment, and this was before the economy hit its record low. Black male joblessness is now rumored to be around 60% in Milwaukee.